Today, I want to talk a little bit about flow state. Whenever we look at flow state, if we see this chart right here, we see over here to the bottom left corner, it says less stress. And as you go across the x-axis, it says more stress. Then if we go up the y-axis, we see performance. So whenever there's too little stress, if you notice this bell curve, it says I'm so bored. Then we add a little bit more stress. It says starting to get my attention. And then right there at the peak of the bell curve, it shows the optimal amount of stress. And that's what creates that flow state. And our performance it skyrockets at that point. Same thing with going down the opposite end. If we add too much stress, right, we start to freak out. We start to crash and burn a little bit. It's all about finding the middle ground where we find flow. Where is too much stress? Where is too little stress? And how can we create it in a way that's going to benefit us to just absolutely crush what we got going on? A lot of the times when it comes to stress management, especially as S&C coaches, we like to look at the load monitoring portion of everything. Don't get me wrong, I definitely look into that as well. There's just a lot more other variables that are playing into the situation than just load monitoring, right? So whenever it comes to different things, what about mental load? That's also going to play into stress management, as well as this right here, which is the polyvagal theory. If we look at nervous system stability, that's also going to play into if we find flow state or not. If we look at the three parts of the nervous system, or because of the polyvagal theory, the three parts that they kind of came up with, then we see that there is a sympathetic nervous system, parasympathetic, and then a social engagement, which is pretty much kind of like a mixture between parasympathetic and sympathetic. When we look at the autonomic nervous system or that polyvagal theory, then we see that there's two main components to that. We have the sympathetic response and the parasympathetic response. Depending on what your personality is like, that's going to dictate which behavior you present whenever you go into that state. So let's say you're in a sympathetic state. Well, depending on your personality, are you going to fight, flight, freeze, flop, or fawn? Whenever it comes to parasympathetic, for the most part, it doesn't matter who you are, you're going to be able to rest, recover, rebuild, regenerate. Now, another way that your behavior and your personality fits into this is whenever you are able to switch back and forth. Some people are always stuck in a sympathetic state. Some people are always stuck in a parasympathetic state. Flow comes from being able to control this part of us. There's a lot of other things that are going to play into it, but this is a big one, right? So whenever we start to get butterflies, how do we control that? Flow also comes from this chart right here, which is Maslow's hierarchy of need, right? And so if we look at this pyramid over here, we see physiological, safety, belonging, esteem, self-actualization, and transcendence, right? A few questions that we can ask to kind of see what part of that chart that you're at is, are my basic needs met? We know that we don't have water, shelter, right? Quality sleep, things like that we're not going to be able to climb up this chart very well. Do I feel safe? We know through research whenever it comes to athletics and various other things that we're not going to be able to perform to the best of our ability if we're not in a safe situation. Our body wants to keep us safe above all else. Another question is, do I belong in the situation that I'm in? If not, then find a different situation. We know that preparation builds confidence in a lot of ways. So are you prepared? Are you living your best life, right? And in order to do that, you kind of need to have all of these other things taken care of in order to allow that to happen. You feel inspired through different situations.